Hello, superhumans out there. I'm selling up and we're talking about shingles. And let me tell you what, I was the poster child of shingles. I got so sick with shingles that eventually, that not only did I have shingles on one side of my body, because that's the way the nervous system is set up, I had shingles on both sides of my body, and my doctor told me it was systemic, which means they never really went away. I was always feeling it. And so I went through the standard protocol of getting that treated. But at the time, I was in a job transition, and what I was taking was quite expensive. And then I stumbled upon a broadcast, or rather a podcast, and the doctor was talking about um, taking turmeric with curcumin, 1,000 milligrams in the morning and 1,000 milligrams at night. And I just, I thought I would give it a go and see what would happen because, it couldn't hurt. And I was hurting for certain. Anyway, I took that. My symptoms went away like within a couple of days. It was mind blowing, mind blowing. And so, for those of you who are looking for a more natural approach, a holistic approach, talk with your doctor because I know that using turmeric with curcumin may not be for everybody. And so, you definitely need to have a conversation with your healthcare provider to see if that would be a good fit because that's quite a bit of turmeric with curcumin. But anyway, it worked out great for me. And anytime I would have a flare, I would take that and they would just immediately go away, usually within a couple of days. And trust me, I had probably the worst case of it well, anyway, that doesn't mean to toot my own horn, but it was quite painful anyway. So, in addition to that, they were always sort of lingering. And let me see if I can get to it. Here's where I want to go. When I was dealing with shingles, anytime you have a large bouts of anxiety and you have stressors in your life, and we all do. And I worked for many years as a broker, and it's high pressure, So there's a lot of stress in that industry. And for any of us, just, all of us going through whatever life we're going in, no matter where you're working, there's always going to be enormous amount of stressors. And if your body isn't handling it, or you're not handling how to deal with the stresses, it will build up over time. And so when I came across Dr. Bradley Nelson's The Emotion Code, one of the things that began to really break all this down for me was found here in the body code. So yes, the turmeric with curcumin was helping me, treat the symptoms so that the pain would go away. But my sponge, if you will, was still quite full of anxiety and frustration, worry, all that goes on with all of us. And so I began to break it down through my healing journey over the last 8 years and thought I would share this with you all because what I found in my own journey and working with other people with shingles, I have found that my clients have responded similarly the way I have. So, it was nice that we can take the turmeric with curcumin. I think I used is it Nature Made? Anyway, it's easy. I mean, you can get it at Walmart, you can get it at Meijer, Walgreens. I mean, they have it everywhere. But again, it's turmeric with curcumin, 1,000 in the morning, 1,000 milligrams in the morning, 1,000 milligrams at night. That does help reduce the symptoms, but you're still dealing with it, right? And it's the chickenpox virus that mutates over time, over stress. Those high levels of cortisol that courses through your body that begins to change the structures of your cells and whatnot. Well, when I got with Dr. Bradley Nelson and got with the body code and began to break it down, one of the first places we go, oh shoot, I have to reload this page. Hold on, let me stop this for a second. I will pause. I'll be right back. All right, so let me do the screen share again. Okay, here we are. So it had logged me out. So I went to energies and I began to break down emotional energies, and that's always the first place we start in the body code. We begin to break down the trapped emotional energies, and as Dr. Brad talks about, every time you feel an emotion, and if you feel it long enough and intensely enough, that energy begins to build up in your body. And as it builds up over time, depending on what you're dealing with, it will begin to show up in illnesses in your body. And how he states that is that trapped emotional energy balled up inside of you will begin to disrupt the electromagnetic flow inside the body. And so once I began working with him, working with removing trapped emotional energies, it did wonders. What is so interesting, you usually begin with the heart wall. And those things are usually emotions that you feel that are somebody has slighted you, done you wrong, hurt you severely. And you begin to take the stand. Um, Nobody's ever going to hurt me like that again. And you begin to build that wall, and we've all heard it, we've all heard it. You build a wall around yourself, you break that down. You're never going to go anywhere until you get rid of your wall. Well, this is really what they're talking about. It's these emotional walls that we build up for protection. And in some degree, and in respect to the human form and how it's all developed over time, it makes sense because it protects you from being eaten by the bear in the woods. But at some point, we also have to know how to deal with our emotions. And, we're taught a lot of things as kids, right? But we're not really taught very often how to deal with navigating difficult situations. And the pendulum always swings from far one way to far the other way. The reality is that, instead of listening to, whatever the soup du jour is, we need to individually take responsibility for how we move through our own life experience and decide for ourselves as adults, how are we going to handle stressors? Are we going to go exercise, eat better? Are we going to try alternative methods like tapping and EMDR, which is administered by your healthcare providers? Are we going to try other holistic methods, retreats, going to an energy healer such as myself, or a quantum healing, a quantum, a QHHT hypnotherapist like myself? I do both. And so, there's many, many ways, and this is just one way of doing it, and it has worked well. So once we worked clearing those trapped emotional energies, there's other places we have to look. There's can be post-traumatic energies, psychic traumas, physical traumas, miasms, and inflammation. Now, of course, we've got inflammation going on in our body because that's what cortisol eventually triggers. So the miasm is an interesting thing. He sort of has an idea what's going on to this. I stumbled onto a podcast the other day that was so interesting that really ties this in nicely. And that is, do you have a miasm? And that is identify which ancestor it came from. So it's an inherited distortion of energy from a suppressed disease. Now, that was really in the realm of woo-woo until I came across a podcast. I'll try to find it and get it in the link below, that talked about how every thought, every emotion does imprint itself into the DNA. And eventually over time, especially. So all the information that a supercomputer holds, for example, your DNA, your cellular memory actually can hold more information than the world's largest supercomputer today. Now, if you think about that, that is so mind-blowingly massive. Like, what on earth do I do with all that? So, and what does that mean? Well, what that means for people who are of faith, you'll hear it, the kingdom of heaven is within. Much of this is true. This is another layer to that. It's not all of it, but it is another layer. And that does mean that we are transmitting to future generations how we feel today. So now it becomes even more important for ourselves to do what we can to get our minds, our body, and our spiritual side, flowing in a better, more positive way, especially for you young people out there who are going to have children. Because, and it goes way back, we carry within ourselves the potential of every thought, every emotion ever felt by all ancestors that came before us in all directions. So, when you're thinking about inherited diseases and whatnot, it can truly stem from here. Now, we do have the book that's quite interesting by Dr. Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief, which I think ties into this new way of thinking. He talks about that we don't have a cancer cell per se, but because we fear that our family member has had, it's been carried down. My mother had breast cancer, and that fear carries down. Well, her mother had it, and my aunt had it. The fear of that can trigger all of that. It's an excellent read. I recommend that you get it. It's called The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, and how that sort of breaks all that down. But here's how I see it from an energy healer's perspective and from working with Dr. Bradley Nelson. And really what that podcast taught me, which was really mind-blowing, is that if this is true, that all of our ancestors, their thoughts, their emotions are imprinted on our DNA. By us giving attention to something that might be rather dormant, non-active within ourselves, we can definitely trigger that fear that is a frequency. Because remember, like Nikola Tesla said, everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. And by placing your attention and intention on that, then you begin to understand that it can bring forward that thing that you fear. So, anyway, we look at all these things here. So, back to shingles. One of the things that I found after that is that I found I had pathogen. And of course, naturally, it was virus. It was a virus because, again, it's a chickenpox virus. And that chickenpox virus was still in the somatic nervous system. So energetically, I began to clear that out. Now, this is after I cleared out all the trapped emotional energy out. And I have to tell you, that took some time. It was like, I tell my clients this all the time, you're like Shrek, meaning, like he said to Donkey, I'm like layers. Ah, layers, like an onion. Donkey's like, well, how about a parfait? I like parfait. That's what we are. We are these balls of energy, if you will. And oftentimes we peel out those outer layers, the stuff that is closer to the surface to clear first. And then we have to dig a little bit deeper. That's where we get into the psychic traumas and the misalignments and pathogens and other things that are contributors to all of this. Now, I went ahead and I cleared out, energetically speaking, and I have to say this, and I have to say this in all my videos, is that this is my opinion and that you must continue, in my opinion, to work with your healthcare provider. But if you are suffering with shingles, add me in to your list of people to help you. And then let's get this rolling. Let's get this taken care of. And you have a team of people who can help you. My ego's not so big. I get it. It's nice to be a part of a greater team to help you get well. All right. So The pathogens were cleared out of the somatic nervous system. Now, what happened next in this journey, once I cleared that out, I did have some toxins. And for me, I had, where is it? Chemical toxicity. And for me, I had medication toxicity in me, and that I went ahead and cleared as well. And that was really heavy within my nervous system. And boy, I got to tell you, when I started moving these energies out, when I would first do it, man, I would feel so lightheaded. It felt awesome. And then over time, I began to feel draggy again. And I'm like, oh, okay. Once I began to feel draggy again, I felt like, okay, my work isn't done. What is the next thing? Again, like Shrek said, going back to that other layer. So once that was done, that felt pretty good. I felt really light, felt really good for a few days. Well, then something else began to happen. I began to slide back, but I wasn't sliding back as far. My body was changing. I was feeling better. But what I found that I had a misalignment and I had it again in my nervous system, and I went to my central nervous system, and what was misaligned was my spinal cord. Not surprising. I'd been in a couple of car accidents and a few severe falls, so it doesn't surprise me that my spinal cord wasn't misaligned. Went to the brain too. I had some issues in the brain stem. That's where the fight or flight mechanism is. It is the place that keeps us alive when we are walking through the forest. And I had some energy stored in all three areas of my brain stem. Got that energy cleared. So there are so many places to look, and everybody has their own story. Your body, no matter what you're dealing with, has its own story. And what we do in QHHT and in the body code system and clearing these trapped emotional energies is we begin to peel back those layers. The good news is I don't need to know your background. I don't need to know your personal details, things that maybe you are ashamed of, or and let me just, I want to actually, that reminds me, I want to go back to emotional energy here. Anything that you're ashamed of that you don't want anybody else to know, I don't need to know that. What we're looking for, the emotion code, body code practitioners, and also in QHHT, is going to the root, the source of what causes this. What is the emotion that you're feeling from whatever experience that you had, and clearing that. Now, here you see the list that Dr. Brad puts up. These are the emotions that we are dealing with. Shame, every emotion on here has its own frequency. Shame is the lowest frequency, and love is the highest frequency. So what we do is we remove out all these negative emotional energies, and you will begin to feel that as you go through life where things, quote, triggered you, don't trigger you anymore. It's really nice not to be upset. I mean, how many times have you been going along feeling just really, you're feeling really good, and somebody says something and you're just like ignited, just like, whoa. And then you stop and you catch yourself and you're like, why did I react that way? It's because your sponge is full. You got so much trapped emotional energy in you that, the only way you're going to get this out is, in my humble opinion, is to begin to work with, if you're working with a counselor now, a healthcare counselor, then ask them if they're qualified to do what is known as EMDR. It's done beautiful work bringing people with PTSD out of that and getting them to some amazing places. There's a lot of information out there on that. I recommend people, if you're trying the holistic way, and so maybe Reiki hasn't fully helped yet, and you are working with a healthcare provider, ask them if they're qualified to do EMDR, and if they are not, find somebody who is, because it is life transformational. It is transformational. Anyway, come to somebody like me. And if we can't clear it, then definitely try that too. Again, it's about bringing a team of people to help you. You don't have to suffer. We all work together trying to help you out. The other thing too, I want to show you is that you can have an emotional resonance energy. Now, what that is if you've had two emotions that you felt simultaneously, intensely at the same time, such as fear and terror, horror and terror. Those are really the most intense frequencies your body will experience. That will get caught in your body and it will be like you ring a bell and that will resonate continually in your body. The other thing too, if you're dealing with like diabetes, for example, what we have learned is that you're feeling the lack of sweetness in your life. And those are the energies that you're going to feel there. Hopelessness, helplessness, lack of control, lack of self-esteem, guilt. Guilt is huge. Humiliation, longing. All these emotions play into that. If you're somebody who feels betrayed, anxiety, anger, bitterness, hatred, you might feel unsupported. All those play into um, arthritis, right? It's not letting go. It's that holding on to rheumatoid arthritis. It causes the body to become inflamed. So there is merit to trapped emotional energy and how it affects your body. So you begin to feel something, and over time, the more you feel it, the more those energies build. And the more those energies build, and the less you work to clear those energies, then it begins to present itself in dis-ease or disease. And in the worst case scenario, cancers. So, again, add us to your quiver of healing. I'm just one arrow, and we can look at different things. But I wanted to share with you that when I went through my own healing journey and cleared all this stuff, I no longer have shingles. I no longer have shingles. My thyroid had shut down on me. Um, I think that's the most amazing story right there. Going through all that healing with the goal of clearing my shingles, my thyroid healed. I think that was the most amazing thing because my doctor said to me one day, she said, okay, looks like your blood works really, really good. You can go ahead and just keep on doing. I'll write you another script for me. I think I was taking Synthroid at the time. It was good medicine. It helped me quite a bit. And but I had been off of it for a year. I hadn't told her yet because I just took it upon myself. I don't recommend that you do that because what I have learned that can be quite dangerous. So when I work with my clients, I always say work with your healthcare provider, do it smart, tell them what you're doing, and have them monitor you because it's important to stay on your medication until you're able to come off of it. So let somebody smarter than me help you do that. I'm just telling you my own experience, and I don't recommend that you do it this way. Um, at any rate, she was astounded when I told her I hadn't taken it for a year. She goes, nobody comes off of this. And I said, yeah, but I did. And then I told her what I did. She goes, well, that's the power of consciousness. And yes, it is. So for those of you who want to explore coming off your medications, I recommend strongly that you work with your doctor and talk about different ways of doing that. Because you don't want to come off medication when your body still needs it or portions of it. So I will say this, do it correctly, work with your doctor, and find ways to help you clear trapped emotional energy so you can become in a better place and go through life in a more happy, positive, peaceful way. It will be transformative. So with that now, I leave you, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithms. Share with like-minded people because it's important that we all learn that we can ignite the superhuman in ourselves. If you would like an appointment, visit sallyknop.com and go to the tab Private Sessions. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day.